Fleet management is the key reason why Synology is already popular with many large retail customers out there. By fleet management, what do we mean? Well, when you have hundreds, potentially thousands of NASs, being able to manage them, monitor them efficiently. I'm sure some of you are familiar with one of our apps, CMS. It's a central management system that manages at the DSM level. Actually, CMS is also, there's a second version which is built into our surveillance station. We won't be looking at it today. It would make the webinar way too long, but it is something if you're interested in, speak to us, or we can even maybe run a second webinar on that. And then in recent years, you may have heard of Active Insight. Active Insight is it's a cloud-powered solution. It does certain things that CMS can perform, but with an extra layer of AI to do more proactive monitoring. And then the last one is our DP series. We have backup appliances. They can also be clustered, I think up to 2,500 nodes. So it's really something that we try to push for our enterprise customers to allow the very efficient management, not of standalone systems. So what will we talk about today? Central management system will feature heavily. Active Insights, we won't demo it, but we'll explain when to use central management system, when to use Active Insight, and actually they're complementary. And then we'll talk about the exciting stuff, surveillance station. Obviously, as you know, we have cameras, we have some pretty powerful features, but also the third-party integration that you can do with it. So one thing I want to stress is that this webinar is obviously for the people that we met at the show who may not be so well versed with Synology, and that's why we're not just talking about surveillance station. We also want to highlight some of those key features, notably central management system. So CMS was launched, I believe, in DSM 5.1 or DSM 5.2, basically back in 2014. So it's not a new app, very mature. You can manage up to 10,000 sites and therefore 10,000 NASs, which that sometimes surprises people. I don't believe it's hard-coded, but that's what we have tested and we guarantee. And very importantly, it's license-free, and that often with these kind of fleet management solutions, usually there is a license cost. That is something that really helps our customers that sometimes are on the budget. It's very transparent, and you buy the hardware, the package comes free of charge. So CMS can do a lot of things. We'll talk about groups and policies, obviously, as well as how it can centralize notifications, see all of your hard drives, shared folders, and an entire cluster. But we're going to start with the basics for our first demo, and it's the installation. And we'll take a bit of a scenario. Imagine you're a UK retailer, and you've acquired some new shops in France. And, well, every shop is going to have a new NAS. Well, rather than install individually, you can use CMS to do a batch installation. Potentially up to hundreds of NASs. We tend to recommend, keeping the batches not too crazy. And in this demo, so we fast forwarded it just to make sure that it doesn't take forever and you don't fall asleep. But this was a 10-minute process. If you do over-the-air installation, if you have maybe 100 NASs, it might take a little bit longer, but it's not going to be linear, so it will still remain very, very efficient. So as you can see here, we're logged into our central management system. We've done it with a reduced number of NASs here, just because we don't have hundreds in the office to actually showcase that. But you'll get the general idea of what can be done. We have some, you can see UK petrol station, UK shops. Keeps the naming rather consistent for you. And what we're going to be doing in the next few steps is add some new servers. You have two options, and the first one is installing the DSM from scratch on those servers. So you don't need to actually do anything apart from plug some hard drives into them and put them on the same network. If DSM is already installed, then just add existing servers. So we are now going to have the NAS, the CMS hosts, look for the ones that are on the network. You can see here they don't have to be identical. That's something that's important to note. And you have some options if you want to install from the Synology website, if you want to download the PAT file and do it manually. I believe we've done that option in this demo. Typically, it can just make things happen faster if you don't have a great network. You have to choose a username, obviously, a password, confirm the password. You'd obviously have the same one for all of the ones in the batch, and then you'd want to apply that separately after. Number fourth is interesting. You can choose a server name prefix. So as you can see here on the left, UK Petrol, UK Shop. Well, here we're going to choose something for the those French stores we're buying, FR_shop, and that will automatically apply the name with a good consistency. Okay, so as you know, on a traditional NAS or NVR with Synology, the DSM is written on each drive, so all the data is wiped. Be aware of that. You have a few key settings, notably for the network. We're going to stick with DHCP, but you can do some manual configurations if you so desired. And then the next step is to install. So this is where we're going to start fast forwarding. If you check the status column, it tells you what's happening, so processing, and then you're going to see that status. So you can see it's being fast forwarded. I'm just, while we wait, there's probably going to be 20-25 seconds. Check that we don't have questions. Brilliant, we're all good for now. I should maybe have clarified, if you have any questions, feel free to just pop them in the chat or the Q&A section, and I will either get to them or one of my colleagues will send you the reply directly. There you go. So in the real demo, this was 10 minutes. We fast forwarded it, but you can see just the last step is that it's joining those two servers to the cluster. We could have done it with 50 servers. It would have been the same process. And I believe that as soon as that happens, the IP will disappear and you'll get the actual name of your server. And what you are interested in is, you can see here, the status, it's showing connected. So all that is good and well. So again, it's a pretty straightforward demo, but it's one of those features that we like to highlight to customers, not just in retail. When you have multiple sites, it can really streamline the deployment of new sites that you may have acquired. So the next step is to look at groups and policies. So that is probably, the installation happens, well, not every day. It's usually once for every NAS. And then it's the groups and policies that you use more on a day-to-day basis. So you can actually see on the screenshot there, there's overview, the servers, the groups, the logs, everything gets centralized along with the notifications. And then at the bottom, you have DSM updates. Storage is all of your hard drives and also shared folders that you can see in the entire cluster. So it just really makes managing large-scale setups much simpler. In our scenario, what William has done for us is that, so building on those two French sites that we bought, we don't want to dial into every single one of them to change key settings. So he's going to change the time zone, so it's GMT +1, and he's also going to apply French language to the UI so that the local IT admins don't get things wrong. So pretty straightforward. It's going to be a very quick demo. So keep your eyes peeled. You can see we're in the NAS here. Everything is in English. Okay, we're just checking a few parts of the UI. And what we're going to do is, so under groups, we are going to edit and add that server, which is FR_shop1, to the group. Okay. As soon as you do that, it's going to start applying the settings of the policy. So the policy is called FR settings, and you can see he's changed the time zone and the languages. And then you refresh, and if things are in French, so you can see it looks foreign, so it must be French. And when there's accents, it's definitely French. So there you go. That obviously we're just doing it with a single server, but if you put in 50, again, it would have really simplified your life and streamlined the whole management. One thing we haven't really showcased, I should probably have taken a screenshot, is that you have a lot of settings available. Like for instance, you could have installed the surveillance package automatically. You could have like done a lot of settings like open SSH ports, do things on the firewall rules. I don't think the entire control panel is there, but I think something like 70-75% is, which means that you can automate a lot of things. So that's it for the demos on CMS. What I would like to just talk a bit about is, well, how do you select the right CMS host? Obviously, there's various things that will impact. I mean, how busy loaded the servers are, if you're getting lots of notifications, lots of access. But realistically, the one thing that has the biggest impact on what you need to maybe choose a more powerful server for is the number of sites that you're managing. So as I said, we've tested up to 10,000 sites. The HD 6500, the FlashStation series, I think the XS Plus series also do 10,000 sites. But if you have loads of money and you want to help Synology sales teams bonus, buy the more expensive ones. But realistically, you may not need that. It might be overkill. Then speak to us. We can spec that out with you. Just as an example, if you have only 100 sites, an RS22 RP Plus, something from our Plus series, will be more than enough to handle that. Now, these figures are with a dedicated host. If you're running some pretty heavy workloads, you'll probably want to allocate or reduce that number or go with a more powerful unit. That is common sense. A good question that comes up is, well, what happens if it fails? So we always say either go with a dual controller, or you have a HA package that comes with all NASs with a business grade CPU, Intel or the AMD Ryzen. So usually you want to go with a HA or dual controller for the host, because you don't want that to have any downtime. And then migration. So migration, I've got an extra slide on that. Last year, we actually had a customer, housing association down in Cornwall, who I think they had 15 sites, 200 cameras, and they wanted to, or they were growing, and they wanted to upgrade their CMS host. So they contacted us, and rather than just speculate, we got Andrea from our tech team to actually do a very similar test, similar units, same CPU architecture. We replicated as close as possible to what they shared with us. And yeah, we went with an actual test to give them some data and direct feedback. Now, you actually have two, I'd say, approaches. You can go with our migration assistant tool, or you can go with Hyper Backup. Basically, go with migration assistant. It's designed for that. Keeping it simple, you would only really have to go with Hyper Backup if you have volumes above 200 terabytes. So most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, it's going to be migration assistance. Make sure that both NASs support migration assistant. Some older NASs don't, so make sure about that. Check for any potential interference on your network, firewalls, antivirus. If you want an encrypted transfer, enable SSH, open the ports. Sometimes you've had feedback it doesn't work. That's the reason. And then the target NAS. Don't create anything, no volumes, no shares, no users. The migration assistant tool will do that for you. There's more to it. If you're interested, we can share the document that Andrea prepared. We can help you with specific tests if needed. But one question you will probably have is, well, how long is it going to take? Andrea had tested with 1.2 terabytes on the original NAS, and it took 4 hours and 10 minutes on a 1 gig connection to transfer that over. Now, one thing he did flag was that if you had active services running on the, notably the original NAS, that can throttle the transfer speeds, roughly 30 megabytes per second. So just to be aware of that. So again, considerations to have when you have a host is that what happens when it goes down or you need to migrate it. Here's the info. I think our team are replying to questions. We can take a look at them later if necessary. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot one thing about the migration. When you finished, or you're not done, you have a few things to be aware of. Now, that case of the housing association, they had cameras, and they were most third party, so they had to reapply all of the licenses onto the new host. So just make sure you have them on hand, so it's you don't have to scramble to go and find them. And then some settings do need to be reconfigured manually, notably the domain, firewall, DHCP server settings. And then last one is obvious, but just be prepared for it, external connections. So if you have VMs targeting the NAS, or just people who've got shares mounted, just make sure that yeah, you reconnect to it, or you have the same IP, that it avoids any disruption. If you have any questions on that, feel free to put them in the chat. I just want to very briefly mention how CMS, so Central Management System, and Active Insight are complementary. So if you're not familiar with CMS, kind of described it. So it runs on a Synology NAS. It's completely license free and can handle up to 10,000 sites. Active Insights does certain of the same functionalities, but it's completely cloud-based. Now, I'll give some examples of what benefits it brings. It does mean that it's not free of charge. I think you have 3 sites that you can run free of charge. Beyond that, it's roughly 17, 18 pounds per site per year. And it's up to 2,000 servers. So in terms of how they're complementary, CMS, you've seen like the initial deployment, groups and policies. It's very, very granular what you can do, and all the centralization of things like notifications. CMS is great for that. So I'd say it's more like kind of the day-to-day management of the system, whereas Active Insights can do certain of these things, but not as granular, not to the same level, and it's not designed for that. Because it's cloud-based, we can, I'll give you an example. I remember from a few years ago, there was an SSD manufacturer that contacted us, and they told us, if you have any customers with that SSD after, I think, 2,000 write cycles, it's going to crash. Create some volume degradations for your customers. So rather than sit on that information from Active Insights, obviously it's all anonymous data, but we could notify every customer that had that SSD in their Synology systems what was going to happen, and well, they could replace the SSD ahead of time and have downtime in a controlled environment, rather than have a volume crash and be scrambling to rebuild the RAID. But Active Insight can also do, detect suspicious activity either on logins or on file activity, which could indicate ransomware. You can do some pretty powerful analysis, identify bottlenecks in your setup, and you also get customized reports and notifications. So it's a very good solution. And if you want to play around with it, on our website there is a free demo that you can just access to. So we're not going to demo it today, because what we want to do now is move into Cement Station and third-party integration. Now, if you have any questions, do feel free to put them in the chat. We'll handle them all towards the end anyway, if you have more specific ones. But with no further ado, we will take a look at why Cement Station and this integration is very beneficial to the retail world. And if you're not familiar with Cement Station, it's a VMS, so a video management system, or CCTV server, but goes beyond that. It can handle clusters of I believe up to 30,000 cameras. I believe 3,000 NASs in the cluster, and I think it's got a really sweet spot between the tier ones. Think of your milestones, which have all the bells and whistles you could possibly need, but they come at a price tag which is sadly not cheap. And sometimes some customers, think of that housing association, often they have very tight budgets. They would love to go with the tier ones, they can't afford them. So we are well positioned there, but compared to the other end of the spectrum, like the cheaper NVRs, often Chinese brands that may not have the same reliability, not the same level of functionality. And in some scenarios, especially in government organizations, you can't have Chinese brands. It's politics. And so in case you're not aware, Synology is a Taiwanese brand. So it's not the People's Republic of China. It's not going to politics. But that is, we see it often in defense. It means that we are viewed as neutral, and it's actually a big selling point. So modern VMS, dedicated hardware that's optimized for our Cement software. We make our own NVRs, all of our NASs can run it, but also we have our own hard drives, memory, even our visual stations. They're like little lockdown PCs that can allow for very secure and efficient viewing of the feeds. We have our own cameras. I'd say we're not a camera manufacturer. We will always support third parties, and there is close to 9,000 third-party cameras. So that's a great selling point. Often when you're starting from scratch, you'll go with the Synology cameras. But if you've got 200 cameras, don't replace them. Most likely now are going to be on the compatibility list. So a lot of flexibility for you to work with our Cement Station. And we also have a cloud for simultaneous cloud recording. So it's a great ecosystem and a great solution without the expensive price tag. I mentioned retail. We see a lot of traction there. But there are some similar industries that have the same challenges, same user cases. Think of bars, hotels, car parks, and in public sector, multi-academy trusts and housing associations. So it's never exactly the same requirements, but they're often very, very similar. And the fact that you have that license-free management of hundreds to potentially thousands of sites, that always resonates with these customers. I mentioned we have cameras, so this slide is slightly out of date. On the left, you have the BC and TC 500, a bullet and a turret camera. 2 weeks ago, we launched a Wi-Fi camera, wireless camera, and coming soon is a 4K varifocal bullet, as well as a fisheye camera, which is going to be quite useful, particularly as the AI capabilities are going to be quite enhanced with the existing TC and BC 500s. As I mentioned, we are Taiwanese and NDAA, TAA compliant, so that's usually a selling point, as I previously mentioned. The AI functionality, I'm not going to go into lots of details, but this slide, if you're interested, just tells you what is within the cameras themselves, what is within the link to those DVAs, which are our AI-powered NVRs. Then there are some analytics that are just on any single NAS, which means that even if your third-party camera can't do it, you can just do it with the software of Synology. Now, the AI is cool, but very often what we find is that integration with third parties is something that a lot of these customers appreciate and trust us for. We often described as the Apple of the NAS and CCTV worlds. It's very flattering. It might be a little bit unjust in that Apple often try to lock you into their ecosystem. Well, it's true that we try to bring out, a lot of our hardware, a lot of our software, the hard drives, the memory. We do try and make sure that you can always integrate with third parties, whether it's the cameras, door controllers, and then you have complex systems, maybe your own monitoring solutions. We have an API for that. We integrate with webhooks. So it's really important for us that your Synology surveillance station and the cameras are not a standalone little island, but that they can talk to the rest of your setup. Think of if you have a smoke sensor with an IO module, it can interface with the Synology system, and if smoke's detected, you can trigger patrols. Again, there's so much you can do. We have a very powerful platform, and it ties in well with third-party devices. So, talking of third-party solutions in the retail world, you can imagine that TIL's point of sales integration is quite critical. So we're going to go over a bit of a scenario and a demo. So here, what we've actually done, I'll be completely honest with you, we do not have a POS system here at Synology, but what we do have is a transaction simulator. And what we've done is done some transactions, and what we want to show you is not so much transactions per se, but how using the search function, you can easily skim down the results and then identify something. So in our case, it's going to be on the transaction simulator, there is a tiramisu. We are investigating some tiramisu transactions that have not been properly invoiced, and we want to find out in our staff and our customers who is the culprit. So before we go into that, I want to share with you that we have a good guide on setting up the transaction module and devices. It's very thorough, so if you're interested, do take a look at that. And also, I mentioned that simulator. We didn't code it for this webinar. It's actually on our download center. So if you're actually interested in playing around with this, you already have a Synology NAS, you have some cameras, and you want to just see what it can do, just go to the download center and spin up a VM on your NAS, or just install it on your laptop, and you can give it a try. If it fits the bill, well, then you can start integrating with a proper POS rather than buying that up front for testing. And this is what our transaction device simulator looks like. So again, nothing fancy. What I want to flag here is that what we have here, the information is probably fairly basic. Whatever your POS system has, it's going to transfer it over to the surveillance station, and it'll be available for the search to focus on. So here's our demo. You can see here we're in the inside of a shop. if you go to the transaction module, you can see if you go to historical records, there's a lot of transaction. We only have 14 here, but I'm told that there might be some issues with the screen sharing. Is there any issues? We're good, excellent. So yes, on a demo here, you can see, actually, I'll tell you what, I'll go back a few seconds. You can see here, under the search, we had quite a few fields you could narrow down on a specific time. We just went on keyword, search tiramisu, and it brought down all of the transactions that were related to that. You can easily click on one, and basically when the transaction happens on the till, it's going to send that information. And I don't know if you can see the green that's appearing, that's the overlay. You can see tiramisu, apple pie, that's going to appear in real time, so you can see what was happening. So we'll be able to detect which person and which staff were involved. And I don't know if you've noticed, but that man here is speaking to the lady with a blue jacket, and has just taken something and put it into her basket. So we're going to investigate who this lady is, and that's the topic of the next demo. And there we're going into the facial recognition. So maybe one thing I should just clarify: what I just demoed here with the POS integration, that doesn't require any of our AI-powered NASs. Any Synology NAS can do that. Now here, the facial recognition, that either requires to be done with a Synology camera, or it can be done with what we call our DVA series, the Deep Video Analytics series. And they tend to have either some optimized software or a dedicated graphics card, because facial recognition, number plate recognition, that takes some processing power. So what we're going to do here, you'll see in the next demo, is that we'll be detecting customers in store, and we'll also, just before that, create a bit of a you'll see there's some allowed blocks, groups, and we'll associate it with shoplifters. So when we detect that person who's had a suspicious activity, we can add them to the shoplifter group, and they will automatically be blocked if we had, for instance, a door controller. I think, and again, I'd let the people in the industry correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you can actually prevent legally someone from entering your store. But where it can be useful is that you get a notification, and you can notify the people in store that, again, there's someone who usually when they're there, shoplifting happens, and they can keep their eyes peeled and make sure it doesn't happen. One thing I will discuss after the demo is that basically the quality of the camera that you use, things like the angle, that has a big impact on the accuracy. And you'll see here, I think in our demo we can improve the accuracy, and I will say a few words about that. So without further ado, we are going to open the face recognition module. So this one, again, we'll just take a look how easy it is to get things started. You create a task, you give it a name, say face recognition shop, and then you choose your video source. So if you have multiple cameras or feeds, you're able to select which one. We're going with the shop that we had earlier. And then here you can see basically if you've created some groups, particularly for blocked, well, you're going to want to block the shoplifters. So depending on what groups you've created, you can associate a behavior with them. Next is basically some parameters around how accurate, sensitive you want things to be. Typically on the AI face recognition, we're going to keep the standard here. And what we're going to do is take a look at that feed, so it can apply to live feeds or to recordings. And okay, so this was the recording from earlier, and you can see that the task is starting to recognize faces. Now they're all going to be unknown because we haven't created a database. That is something that you can start doing as things go through. So it started pretty quick on 3 faces. You can see there's we've taken the whole view to apply the face recognition. You wouldn't have to necessarily do that. But what's going to happen is that facial recognition takes a bit of processing power. We're not on the most powerful DVA unit here, so it might take something like 20, 30 seconds before we start seeing the next faces being detected. And also, you might have some faces that don't get the same match, and we'll be able to merge them. that's where choosing a camera with better resolution than the one we're using here will come in handy. So here you can see what we're doing. This was the lady we had suspicions about. We've added her to the shoplifters category, and we're also going to merge her with that second recognition. Okay. So as you can see, we're able to use that to build a database and monitor our shop more effectively. Right, so now that we have done that, I just want to talk a little bit about one of the most common mistakes that people make. Maybe we're victim of our own success. Often Synology is really, really simple. It's very plug and play, so simple to use, and they expect our AI features to be exactly the same. Well, yes, we make them as easy as possible, but there's only so much we can do. Basically, we have an admin guide. If you are going to want to set up Synology and make use of it, you can either contact our team and we'll help you, or if not, really follow the recommendations of the administrator's guide. I've just put a few screenshots, but you can see the angle of the camera, the distance, the height, that all has quite a big impact. And you can see the do's and don'ts. The camera has a big impact. I believe you need to have at least a 1080p camera, which was not the case. So I want to do justice to our demo. Yes, the recognition could have been at a higher level, but actually we didn't have the right level of resolution. So just be aware of it. And if you need any help, do reach out to us. We want to make sure that you can get the best level of accuracy. You may be aware we have a case study that came out with a Stadium MK. They use our people counting with our AI cameras and our DVAs. And actually at the start, they didn't have the level of 97% accuracy that we advertised. We worked with them, we sent a field engineer, and we were able to get that up to a decent level. But again, they hadn't properly followed the recommendations. So it is a common problem, but we're always there to support you with that. We're approaching the end of this webinar. Just want to very briefly recap. Obviously, this was to showcase to people in the retail world who may not be that familiar with Synology what you can do. We've only touched on certain of the functionalities. There's so much more we could have talked about, but just the ease of setting up systems, managing them with central management, with groups and policies, notably, how active insights can go beyond just the management, but also give you proactive insights and enable preventative maintenance to avoid downtime in the first place. And then finally, Cement Station is a great VMS, great features without the pretty high price tag that you'll get with tier 1 solutions. And importantly, it does integrate with a lot of third-party integrations to help ensure that you're protecting your staff, your inventory, protecting against shoplifting, and also working with those point-of-sale systems. Security is very important, and you can have the best system in the world. If the company behind it doesn't take security seriously in their organization, it's going to be pretty much useless. So three things I like to flag. Our product security and incident response team, or CERT. What are they here for? Well, basically, when we find a vulnerability or it's reported to us, within 24 hours, they either patch for the major versions of DSM, or they'll provide a framework on what you need to do to keep your NAS and data safe. And then also we're part of the first community. That's a forum where big manufacturers discuss any security best practices or findings that they have. So it's a good way of making sure that we are part of a group of manufacturers that share information around that. And finally, our bug bounty program. If you're I believe it's ethical hacker, or if you're a researcher and you want to make a bit of money, put our DSM, Cement Station, cloud services to the test, and you can get money from Synology. But that is very important because we can then get access to that knowledge before nefarious actors would, and keep our customers and their data safe. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and we'll be in touch soon.